Welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, and thank you for joining me tonight. It has been a crazy news day. I've been up since 6 a.m. reporting on the news, doing some stuff on Substack and Blue Sky. Happy to have you here tonight. It's the first day of May. Congratulations. We have made it this far, 101 days into the Trump administration. We're going to have special coverage tonight at the end of the show on the massive protests that have been happening in this country today, orchestrated once again by the 50501 movement, a powerful segment on resistance coming up tonight. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Of course, if you watched the show last Friday, we covered here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show how the Trump administration is targeting legal citizens and how they're not just targeting immigrants, how this is now affecting everyone. Well, now there is another case of that. This time it is a local Oklahoma family that was targeted. They moved from Maryland to Oklahoma for a more affordable life, a change of scenery, and they rented a nice home. And then all of a sudden, in the early morning hours, federal agents burst through their door, seizing electronics, taking cash, all while the daughters of this family, little girls in fact, and their mother were held at gunpoint in the rain, yelling that we're citizens. The names on the warrant did not match the family living there. ICE made a massive mistake but continued to terrorize this family, even as they screamed, "You have the wrong people, we're U.S. citizens." Here's that story now from local KFOR 4 News.
Fear.
Because I did feel at times I felt I was gonna die.
So much fear.
I kept praying. I said, God, please let me live through this moment.
Humiliation.
I was a zero. I was nothing.
Pure disbelief.
I just couldn't understand, how is this happening to us?
All just for wanting a fresh start.
You come to Oklahoma and you get treated like this. For what?
This woman, who we're calling Marissa, and her 3 daughters came to Oklahoma from Maryland looking for a slower, more affordable pace of life. They rented this house in a nice, seemingly safe northwest Oklahoma City neighborhood. Her husband planned to join them this past weekend, but any semblance they had of comfort went out the window when 20 men armed to the teeth busted through it Thursday morning.
I don't know who they were. They had guns. It was dark. All the lights were off.
They were federal agents, Marissa says, with the U.S. Marshals, ICE, and the FBI.
And I kept asking them, like, who are you? What are you doing here? What's happening? And they said, we have a warrant for the house.
They ordered Marissa and her daughters outside into the rain before they could even get dressed.
They wanted me to change in front of all of them, in between all of them.
The thing is, the suspect names on that search warrant were not Marissa's or anyone in her family's. They were, however, names listed on mail still arriving at the house. Former residents, perhaps.
We just moved here from Maryland. We're citizens. That's what I kept saying. We're citizens.
She says they didn't care.
We weren't criminals. Why were they treating us like criminals? We were here by ourselves. That we didn't do anything.
The agents ripped apart every square inch of the house, taking their phones, laptops, documents, and their life savings in cash as evidence.
Like, I have to feed my children. I'm gonna need gas money. I need to be able to get around. Like, how do you just leave me like this, like an abandoned dog?
And when they left, they told her something.
I know it was a little rough this morning. It was so denigrating. Like, you do all of this to a family, to women, your fellow citizens, and it was a little rough. You have literally traumatized me and my daughters for life.
This family has virtually nothing.
And I said, when are we gonna get our stuff back? He was like, it could be days or it could be months.
Nothing but questions.
Well, what if I would have been armed? What if you're breaking in? What am I supposed to think? My initial thought is we were being robbed. My daughters, my female daughters being kidnapped.
Nothing but likely lifelong trauma.
We have guns pointed at our faces. Can you just reprogram yourself and see us as humans, as women, a little bit of mercy, and care a little bit about your fellow human mate, about your fellow citizen, like fellow resident. We bleed too. We bleed just like anybody else bleeds. We were scared. You could see it in our faces that we were terrified.
Once again, that is local reporting from KFO4R News. KFOR OR Forward News, there, out of Oklahoma, in which legal U.S. citizens had their home raided and were questioned by federal agents. And there are a lot of questions here. I mean, for one, if the name on the warrant did not match the people that were in the house, why would you proceed to continue questioning and terrorizing this family? Why didn't you leave? And also, why is this so botched and horrific that the mother in this case is so audibly distraught? And also that the mother in this case was not left contact information on how to get her family's belongings back. The agents of 3 different federal agencies raided her home, and she is left completely in the dark with how to proceed here. This is what the Trump administration is doing, going after legal citizens in this country. And this should not come as a surprise, because of course they were going to do this. It was in Project 2025, and it was part of his mass deportation plan. It's also in the history books. You start with one group, and then you go after the rest. I was not playing last week when I said that this was our Anne Frank moment, that ICE agents were going to be kicking down people's doors and looking for migrants in their homes. That's how serious of a crisis we are in, as legal residents of this country are getting snatched off the streets, as their doors are being kicked in and smashed in windows. Yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee held an hours-long hearing regarding this matter, and these were just some of the highlights.
And I think it is very important to recognize that in this moment, they are trying to say that due process does not apply to you if you're an immigrant. And now they've gone further than that, because they're actually taking U.S. citizens, legal permanent residents, people who are here with legal status already. So they've already moved on quickly to every person. And I just think it's important that we remind people that the Fifth Amendment's guarantee is that, quote, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And it applies to every person in this country, regardless of their citizenship or their immigration status.
Repeatedly said, we are citizens. You have the wrong people. We are citizens. It happened in the middle of the night. 3 children at gunpoint were forced outside to stand in the rain in their underwear while their mother pleaded with these agents to tell them what was going on. They ignored the pleas. They ripped apart the entire house. They seized cash, documents, electronics, their computers as evidence. When the family asked when they would get their stuff back, the agents responded, well, it could be days or it could be months. This was all a colossal mistake. The names on the warrant did not match the people who lived in the house. This is what we have created here. This is Trump's America. These were citizens who were treated like this. This is what we want you to open your eyes to. If it can happen, as we've said time and time again, if it can happen to folks with green cards, it can happen to citizens. And in Oklahoma City, we see a perfect example of that. This is what we're talking about. It's not other people. It's us. It's our neighbors. It's our friends. It's people who just moved from Maryland to Oklahoma for a better life and have their house destroyed. And they can't get answers. If we watch the rest of the news clip there, they're asking ICE, who's responsible for this? And then they're sending them to another agency, and they're sending them to another agency, and nobody is accountable for what happened to them. This is what my colleagues are trying to fund with this bill. Armed federal agents breaking into homes, even of U.S. citizens, traumatizing them, taking their possessions. This is Trump's America. That's why we continue to talk about due process. It's not some pie in the sky idea. It's what literally holds our country together. Without due process, without the belief in the Constitution, we are not Americans. That's what gives us the ability to say we are an exceptional country in the world, that everyone who lives here gets due process. And we're going to keep saying this over and over and over again. for everyone who lives here. What happened to that family, once again, of American citizens in Oklahoma City should scare the hell out of all of us. And we should not be using this committee to find more money to pump into ICE so that these things can happen. This family is all of us. That's what we're trying to say today. This family is all of us. And I can't believe that in our name, on our watch, this is happening to people who live in this country. Open your eyes. Wake the hell up. I yield back.
Once again, those were just very stern remarks from Congresswoman Becca Balint, as well as at the top there, Pramila Jayapal and other Democrats speaking just at length here, vociferously condemning the Trump administration, these vile actions. All Republicans, right after that, essentially, they unanimously voted on the House Judiciary Committee. They unanimously voted to give Donald Trump the legal authority to deport illegal U.S. citizens. This was the post-reaction of that by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Congressman Eric Swalwell, two Democrats who stood on the committee. If you watch the TJPS Morning News Rundown, we talked about how Congresswoman Crockett was not shocked, and Eric Swalwell was audibly stunned there. Of course, this news here, House Republicans sitting on the Judiciary Committee, all 23 of them voted here in favor to unanimously give Donald Trump the legal ability to deport U.S. citizens. And of course, this comes as the cruelty of this mass deportation campaign is mounting. Today, a Texas federal judge who was appointed by Donald Trump essentially ruled that the Trump administration cannot use the Alien and Enemies Act to deport migrants in this country. Essentially, the context that the Trump administration is using the AEA from 1798 is to go after Tron de Agua, members of the Venezuelan gang. And they're essentially using that context here to do mass deportation writ large. And a federal judge said, absolutely not. This is from the ruling here, quote, "While the proclamation references the TDA members have harmed lives in the United States and engaged in crime, the proclamation does not suggest that they have done so through an organized armed attack, or that Venezuela has threatened or attempted such an attack through TDA members. As a result, the proclamation also falls short of describing a predatory incursion, as that concept was understood at the time of the AEE's enactment. For these reasons, the court concludes that the president's invocation of the Alien and Enemies Act through the proclamation exceeds the scope of statute and as a result is unlawful. Respondents do not possess the lawful authority under the Alien and Enemies Act and based on the proclamation to detain Venezuelan aliens, transfer them within the United States, or remove them from the country. As a result, the court concludes that as a matter of law, the executive branch cannot rely on the Alien and Enemies Act based on the proclamation to detain the named petitioners in the certified class or to remove them from the country." End quote. So once again, this is a major development here in the mass deportation movement as we're following this here, because if you recall, the Supreme Court recently also kind of stopped the Trump administration from going full scale with the Alien and Enemies Act of deporting Venezuelans who are residing in Texas. Now, in regards to that, the Supreme Court basically said, hey, if you're going to deport people, you can use the Alien and Enemies Act, but you need to give them habeas corpus, essentially. People need to get hearings. There needs to be due process before they're just deported and shipped off to CCOT or something. You need to give everyone due process. Of course, the Trump administration continues to defy the federal courts, so we will see if they adhere to this. But it is worth noting that the Trump administration did listen to the Supreme Court after that ruling, essentially, and those buses were turned around after that Supreme Court ruling. So, I mean, what we're watching here is not only due process being effectively sort of stripped away here with the way that the Trump administration is doing mass deportation, but we're also watching the administration lying about how they're doing this. I mean, according to the ACLU of Louisiana, the Trump administration has deported multiple U.S. citizen children with cancer, all young, ages 2, 4, and 7. In a most recent case, attorneys have disputed the administration's claim that the deported mothers willingly took their U.S. citizen children. According to new reporting from NBC News, the attorneys now say that ICE told one mother to bring her children with her to a check-in and knew in advance that another mother's child had stage 4 cancer, yet they still had already arranged for their deportations. The mothers of these children did not agree to this, of course. They did not agree to this, according to this new reporting from NBC News, but they were ambushed into it. It is also worth noting essentially here that U.S. citizens kind of writ large right now are being questioned, arrested, and detained by federal agents. That's not something that is new, though. This has been happening all across the country since Donald Trump has taken office. In January, of course, a Puerto Rican military veteran was detained during a warrantless ICE raid on a workplace in Newark, New Jersey. Despite presenting valid military documentation, his citizenship was questioned. At least 15 Native Americans were stopped, questioned, or detained by ICE agents at their homes and workplaces. Reports indicated that federal agents essentially failed to recognize tribal IDs as valid proof of citizenship, even though they are Native Americans. This is literally their land. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a family of 3, including a toddler, was detained by ICE after being overheard speaking Spanish while shopping. Although they were later released, they were left to find their own way back home from a detention facility, underscoring just how vituperative and repulsive this mass deportation campaign is. And those are just some of the stories. I could go on and on and on and on. But this is remaining to get worse as time goes on, because they are also using the levers of the massive federal government to aid this effort as well. Recently, it was the Department of Homeland Security making a deal with the IRS to track migrants through tax data. That was so egregious and a breach of the IRS's independence as a federal agency that the IRS commissioner resigned. Then it was DOJ accessing the Department of Justice's system for immigrants in this country, and also collecting data to remove immigrants from housing, jobs, and also Social Security. Just yesterday, it was reported that it was announced that the United States Postal Service is now going to add to Trump's mass deportation effort. According to exclusive reporting from the Washington Post yesterday, this is something that is really happening. Quote, the law enforcement arm of the U.S. Postal Service has quietly begun cooperating with federal immigration officials to locate people suspected of being in the country illegally, according to 2 people familiar with the matter and documents obtained by the Washington Post, dramatically broadening the scope of the Trump administration's government-wide mass deportation campaign. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service, a little-known police and investigative force for the mail agency, recently joined a Department of Homeland Security task force geared toward funding, detaining, and deporting undocumented immigrants, said that the people who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of professional reprisals. Immigration officials are seeking photographs of the outside of the envelopes and packages, an inspection service program known as mail covers, and access to the Postal Investigation Agency's broad surveillance systems, including Postal Service online account data, package and mail tracking information, credit card data, and financial material and IP address, the people said. End quote. So I just want to be clear here, per this reporting, this move was agreed to by the United States Postal Service. They were not coerced into this. They agreed to this because that they were afraid of threats from the Trump administration to take over and privatize the agency after Louis DeJoy, who aided and abetted most of Donald Trump's anti-post office claims, was fired last month because they're looking to privatize the post office. So they capitulated to political pressure. And so now the people who deliver your mail, a part of that agency, the law enforcement part of the United States Postal Service, the people who delivers our mail, is now helping deport people en masse in the United States. The U.S. Postal Service. Of course, this comes after, of course, Trump signed an executive order shortly after taking office, directing all federal law enforcement agencies to take part in locating and deporting undocumented immigrants. So now many of these agencies, including ones where mass deportation is irrelevant, are now assisting in this campaign. Of course, in regard to mass deportation, I just want to underscore something else that also has been happening here. This week, the Donald Trump signed an executive order that is directing the Attorney General of the United States and the Secretary of Homeland Security to publish a list of state and local governments that they see as obstructing federal immigration law enforcement. Of course, that list will be nothing but political targets of the administration, as we've already seen. And something happened today. This is essentially Tom Homan. He is the border czar for the Trump administration. He is one of the architects of this. He was the architect of the zero tolerance policy, where we saw infamous pictures like this. Little children being separated from their families at the southern border under the first Trump administration. Well, now under the second administration, he is now essentially mused about the fact that mayors or local Democratic elected officials who do not obey the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign, that they potentially could be arrested. Yes, we've already arrested the judges, but sir, are we going to be arresting mayors soon? Watch his reaction to this question.
So, the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
So once again, that is Tom Homan. He's the border czar for the Trump administration. He is openly smiling about the fact that the Trump administration could now be soon going after Democratic mayors and other local officials to arrest them if they do not comply with what this administration is doing. So once again, as I said, it's going to be politically targeted. We might actually be seeing mayors get arrested soon. They already have gone after judges. It looks like they're going to start going after mayors and other local officials. It's time to raise concern about this. Yesterday, of course, a federal judge essentially ordered the Trump administration to ensure migrants being held at Guantanamo Bay are being given a chance to raise any concerns about their safety before being deported to El Salvador or other countries other than their places of origin. This will now limit the administration's ability to deport migrants at Guantanamo Bay expeditiously. We covered that in part 2 of this special report on mass deportation, the special series that we've done here on the show. But of course, the White House got this news as they're looking to now send deportees to other countries as well, in addition to El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. We've been covering here on the show how legal residents of this country who participated in the pro-Palestinian movement have also been arrested and detained. Well, there is now positive news on that front. This was the front page of the Boston Globe today, celebrating the release of Muhsin Madawi. He was ordered released yesterday from a federal custody by a judge. Of course, as you can see, crowds there amassed to celebrate the victory, of course, after he was targeted for his pro-Palestinian beliefs and targeted by ICE at an immigration appointment. He is now free. He says, of course, he is not afraid of the Trump administration. In the other cases of the other two that were detained by the Trump administration, Mohamed Kalawi and Rumisa Ozturk, in their cases, there are also some developments. In Khalil's condition, he can now fight the wrongful detention in federal court and also fight back against the overt admission that he was targeted for his pro-Palestinian activism. For Rumisa Ozturk, an appeals court has ordered for her to stay in the Louisiana Detention Center. This is after she was snatched off the streets by unidentified federal agents. So there was a lot happening, as I said at the top of the show. There's a lot happening right now, but mass deportation is one of those stories where essentially you're having to follow it case by case every single day and still keep up. Because, I mean, we're seeing scenes like this out of Texas, in Anson, Texas, where, migrants are forming a SOS human body sign with fear of being deported because of ties. They do not have any criminal affiliation whatsoever, but they're afraid to be deported to El Salvador. This is the status quo of mass deportation in this country. They're going after American citizens. They're going after just anyone in this country. You do not agree with this administration. You speak out against this administration. You think differently than this administration. You can be deported. You can be expelled from this country. That is the status quo. That's what's happening here. And they're not just going after judges. They're also going to now go after the mayors. Because, of course, no one is safe. More to come tonight. So, I just wrote a book. It's called Resistance, a strategic guide on how to fight back, defend democracy, and avoid a Trump dictatorship. A lot of people have been feeling heartache and despair and despondency after the 2024 election. And that definitely is widely understandable, especially when you consider the guy who's literally about to be sworn in as president as someone who said that he was going to terminate the Constitution and be a dictator on day one. So in my new book, Resistance, what you get is 7 rules on how to defend democracy, to avoid authoritarianism, and how to literally fight back. It is compelling, richly historic, and a call to action. Resistance, out now. The link is in my bio. It's in my link tree. And once you click on the link tree link, you have like 3 different versions of the book pop up. Get your copy today. Have you ever accidentally texted the wrong person? Yeah, I'm sure we all have. We've also accidentally called the wrong person. It's normal. It happens. It's human. What's not normal, what's not easily forgivable, is if you're doing that as the national security advisor. And I put big quotation marks and accidentally here. Big quotation marks. Because when the story broke from The Atlantic that Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief at The Atlantic, was added into the Signal chat regarding classified war plans, it was literally a huge national security scandal. And there were surely huge reports of surely Donald Trump was going to fire him, right? Surely Mike Waltz will be fired. Surely the Secretary of Defense would resign. Surely there would be some accounting for this. No, there was not. Nothing actually happened. You know what? Donald Trump actually considered firing Mike Waltz, not because of Signalgate, but because that he had Jeffrey Goldberg's number. Wow. So just get rid of the brazen incompetence. We don't, just brush off the brazen incompetence. But because you had my enemy's number, yeah, I'll consider firing you. Today, there was a chaotic new development with this story, because today Donald Trump decided that Mike Waltz was going to leave his role as the national security advisor. Is like, okay, well then Mike Waltz got fired. No, Mike Waltz did not get fired, because literally an hour later, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that I am pleased to announce that I will be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. What? I remember I reported this today for Substack and TikTok and YouTube, and I was shocked. Nothing is supposed to shock me with this administration, but that was the one thing that was like it was like a 360. I mean, how I thought this guy was fired or getting resigned. But no, to do something corrupt, to do something incompetent in this administration, you just get a promotion. You just level up. So Mike Waltz gets replaced as national security. He leaves his role as national security advisor. Now he's going to be the United States ambassador to the United Nations. And then also in this post here by Donald Trump, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is now going to be Donald Trump's interim national security advisor. That's how this is going to work now. Marco Rubio is going to serve as the national security advisor while simultaneously serving in his role as the Secretary of State. This is not the second time they've done this to Marco Rubio. The first time they did this is when Marco Rubio was leading the State Department and also being the leader of USAID. It was literally the most perplexing thing ever. I didn't know you can juggle 2 government agencies simultaneously that are huge and have huge budgets. But with what happened today, with Marco Rubio being named the National Security Advisor, with Donald Trump being so impulsive with his thoughts and what he does and how everything is just via tweet. Watch the State Department spokeswoman's reaction to this, because apparently she is not alerted that this happens. Apparently she finds out at the same time that reporters are finding out in the press room at the State Department. This is astounding. Watch.
Something has just come out from the president.
Yeah.
So
All right, great. Terrific. Terrific.
the president has just written on Truth Social that Mike Waltz is going to become the new U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
Well, there
Therefore,
you
no
go.
longer the National Security
Fabulous.
Advisor. And in addition to that, he says that in the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as National Security Advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Do you know how long he's going to be serving in both roles?
It is clear that I just heard this from you. This is the magic.
No heads up that this was coming to?
I have some insights as to the potential of certain things that might happen. But when the president, and this of course is all presidential decisions, right? So I'm with the State Department. It is, as I think would be clear to all of you, you don't want to get ahead of your skis in drawing conclusions or speculating about what may occur. And you can have a general sense of what's possible. I think the one thing I've learned is that things don't happen until the president says they're going to happen. So the fact that is, which was obviously Truth Social. Yeah, so that is the miracle of modern technology and the social media.
This is the chaos of the Trump administration. This literally is how chaotic it is and how chaotic it's going to be. We are only 101 days in. Brace for impact. It's going to get worse from here. I mentioned at the top of the show that I would have special coverage for you on the massive protests that have been happening all across the nation today. Well, here are compiled clips that we've got together here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show of just the massive protests that happened today. It was absolutely an incredible moment. Watch. That is going to do it for tonight's show here on YouTube, the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Please be sure to comment any suggestions. Also recommend this to a family or friend if you enjoyed this video. You can also support us financially. It's been a long day. I've been up since 6 a.m. It's amazing that I've been able to do 2 shows today, plus all the other breaking news stuff. You can support us financially by donating to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, as this is independent journalism, and we do rely on your donations to continue this crucial work. A huge and heartfelt thank you to all of you who have donated, who have supported my work, who have spread it with those you love. Your donations and your generosity do not go unnoticed. I'm eternally grateful for you all. Be sure to follow us on Blue Sky and Substack at TJPS News. If you have any questions, news topic request, or want to do a collaboration, you can email me tjpsnews@gmail.com. I did it. Bing, bom, boom. 2 shows, multiple news breaking stuff, and I am still sane. I'm going to go eat dinner now after I finish editing this, but I hope you enjoy this. So thank you for watching this lovely video here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Terrifying world we live in. Put some music in, listen to some tunes, eat gummy bears, go dancing. Do something that you enjoy. Disassociate for just a little bit. That's how I stay sane in doing this job with reporting the news. Otherwise, I'd be crying or screaming and yelling all day. So do something fun. Do something for you. You deserve it. You are strong. Go. All right. See you later, guys.